Hey, Snackers, Matt DiNapoli here. I'm a manager of developer advocacy with Cisco Developer Relations.
Hello, Snackers. This is Kareem Iskandar. I'm a lead technical advocate with Cisco Learning and Certifications.
And welcome to episode 88 of Snack Minute.
Snack Minute is your 10-minute weekly bite of learning covering tech, coding, and some cool projects that we work on.
And the cool thing, actually, the cool person we're going to be talking about today, is kind of a guru in the automation space. We're excited to have him on. And so, Eric, would you mind introducing yourself, and then we'll get into our topic today.
Yeah. Hey, Matt. Hey, Kareem. Good to be here. I don't know which guru you're talking about, so I'm looking around and seeing where he's at. But she's at.
You.
Oh, okay. Cool. Yeah. My name is Eric Chou, and I'm a network engineer by training and enthusiastic about network automation for a couple of years. And it's good to be here. I've watched a few of the episodes, especially the one with John Capel. I think he's multiple appearances, always passionate. So, it's good to be here finally.
Thanks for joining us, Eric, here on the show. But just to get things rolling, I wanted to just ask you, what's your background? How did you get into network automation, and what have you done with Cisco and in general that helped you throughout that journey?
Oh my God. So it's over, I guess, 22 years of experience with Cisco, here and there. So of course, I graduated. I started an internship back in college, and this was like 1999, which is like the height of the .com era, right? And so even though I was a minor in MIS, I went into the technology field because I saw the chance to have a bigger impact rather than going to finance, which you have to kind of pay your due, at least at the time. So I was working for a second tier ISP and got into the support role, and then the .com bombed, and so I was having a hard time finding additional job because a support role is almost like everybody, it's like community service. Everybody goes through tech support and then kind of move on to engineering role or whatnot. So but I was having a hard time, and but finally, at the time, I don't know if you guys remember, but it was the time where people were building broadbands all over the US, and that was like the transition from dial-up to broadband. So I was lucky enough to land a job with the cable company, and Time Warner Cable at the time, and the brand is Roadrunner. So we were building out broadbands all over the Southern California region. So I was in Palm Desert Cities, and then we moved into the regional data center. And from there on, went to different companies, including Linksys. So I was sort of a Cisco employee for a little bit, but that was during the acquisition. And of course, we went in, then we moved on to different companies, went into public cloud providers. And that is when I started to kind of have a encounter with scripting, with network automation. So I know, Kareem, you mentioned how I got started. So that's really where I got my start in the public cloud sector, where the data centers are some would classify as a hyperscale. So you do have to automate, you do have to kind of stay on top of things where you can't do things manually in order to survive. And then, what Cisco has done for me, I think it's just like Cisco got me started, right? Like I said, I wasn't a fully trained computer scientist or, in programming. So it's all self-study. And what got me through kind of the learning curve was just following the Cisco certification path. So the CCNAs, the NPs, and that's got to give me earn the street creds almost. And then, when I received my IE back in 2008. Just went from there. And yeah, in a nutshell, that's about it.
He's minimizing.
He's totally minimizing. CCIE is a huge,
this is a snack minute, right? So it's no 5-course meal. So I'm trying to squeeze that in and just to fit the context.
You get your CCIE in 2008. You're working for a cloud provider in their data center, and the automation piece, were you kind of chucked into the deep end, or was there additional learning that was kind of formalized for you? How did you, or were you kind of leading the charge saying this is something that we really need for our organization, whoever you're working for at that time, really needed to invest in and put the time into?
Yeah, Matt, that's a great question. I think for me, I've always been kind of a quote unquote traditional network engineer. So, CLI has always been the tool of choice for me. And, you get better at just understanding technology more. But on the management front, it's always just the CLI. You log into device and do your bit and move out. So for that particular instance, it was the early days of public cloud. So it was Amazon AWS, right? So that was 2006, and Amazon there was no the term cloud, so we kind of grow it organically. And it was at the time where there was Amazon's full of developers, but the developers are on that side of the campus, right? And so we're the infrastructure, we're kind of isolated in our own world, but we do have system engineers who's kind of an in between. So they do a lot of scripting, and so scripting is where we really got started with automation. But at the time, if you guys remember, I'd love to hear you guys' story too. But at the time it was Perl, and Perl has always been a very difficult language for me to learn. I have my own theories about it, but I look at my watch. We don't have a couple of days to talk about it, but essentially, I have a hard time learning about it. It never fits my brain. So every time I learn about Perl, it's almost I have to learn from 0 to 1, and then I'll put it down because it was so difficult for me, and then learn again from 0 to 1. So that's why I tell people when they ask for advices on the programming language, the thing I always tell people is just to find the one that fits your brain. And for me, that language is Python. Python for whatever reason, Guido with his mathematician mind versus Larry with his linguistic mind, right? Like so for some reason for me, Python just fits my brain, how it's structured, and I just went full in, right? Like I went to the UW, University of Washington. So I'm based out of Seattle right now, and so I went to UW's coding bootcamp. It wasn't very much network engineering focus, but luckily what I did was I grabbed everybody I could find, all the network engineer I could find from different vendors, and we actually took the 9-month program together. So we're able to kind of shift the instruction direction. So even though like the official curriculum might be web services, but we're able to, kind of do our project in web services APIs for network engineering or something like that. So that was the cool thing about it is, like the powering the crowd. And then so we're able to alter the curriculum a little bit toward network engineering. So that's how I started to learn the basics of Python. But of course, at work, we still use Python, even though various companies have their own preferences. For example, Microsoft, Azure, they use C# very much so. But, we were able to kind of squeeze Python in here and there. And of course, Python became the predominant language. And Guido joined Microsoft like a couple of years ago, came out of retirement. So it all kind of worked out.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, he did. He did.
How about that?
That's funny because we have similar journeys. I was thrown out of right out of college and into Perl, and I struggled with Perl building internal tools for Cisco, and that was completely a different mindset. And I did like C programming in college, C++ actually. But then when we started DevNet, Matt and I think we just had said Python is the language we're going to teach network engineers, and we're going to build libraries and code and all in. And it's just completely a different mindset. And like you said, it's programming for humans, basically. And so it's okay. So you build a cohort with a bunch of network engineers. You had them take a Python course. How did you go from being a CCIE network engineer, hardcore network engineer, to basically publishing a book around network automation?
Basically, because when I look at the path in general of the different Python projects, the different network automation things I wanted to do, I have a hit and miss ratio about 1 in 3. So most of the time I fail at what I wanted to accomplish until I really find the good bid or the good library or the one that fits. So when I look at that, and what I wanted to do was to share those knowledge and to tell people, hey, I poked myself in the eye and it really hurts. So how about I put something down, and so we don't have to repeat those mistakes. So initially what I did was I started to publish blog posts like a lot of people at the time. So I started to publish blog posts. In a way, it's transferring my notes into public and kind of organize my thought in a way that's understandable for people who's reading it for the first time. So I did that for about 4 years. And one of the and at the time, we started to get into software-defined networking. That is when Stanford came out with, the paper, OpenFlow, and so on. But what happened was OpenFlow, originally the controller was written in Java, and they forked it. There's a project that forked it into Python, and the problem was, there's no documentation. I mean, it's a good project, and you could actually have maybe not one-to-one feature parity, but about 70% what the Java controller could do, you could do it in Python. But there was no documentation. So I started to play around with it, document what I wrote. And one of the blog posts that I posted for the OpenFlow controller really got really ranked high on Google search. So when people searched on that subject, they started to get my results. And there's a lot of comments, and people were interested in the topic. And so the publisher got notice and said, hey, do you want to write a book about network automation? And cool. I looked around the market at the time, there really wasn't any book on such topic. So I actually went back and say, I don't want you guys to lose money, right? Like, thank you for taking the interest, but are you sure this is what you want to write about? Because I don't see any other book. On one hand, there's no competition, but on the other hand, there might be no interest, right? There's just no market for it. But they say, yeah, we're gonna give it a shot, and who knows, right? Like we'll just try it out. And I said, hey, great. And so there. That's long story short. That's how I ended up writing the first edition. And of course, there is indeed a market, and there's indeed a group of network engineers who are just getting into the network automation realm, and they're interested in Python. So. And so that's how the book came about. That's kind of an interesting mistake. I don't know.
No, and the timing about it is amazing, because we didn't get involved in network automation. Like Cisco in general wasn't really super involved in network and automation until about 2011, 2012. And that was probably right around the time, because the OpenFlow paper came out, Open Daylight projects started getting pushed, and the term software-defined networking was just kind of coming out at that point in time as well. And I don't know if you know the history of DevNet, but we started in 2013 more as support for people that wanted to write scripts against our collaboration platforms. But we just happenstance into this whole notion of software-defined networking. And a lot of the work that similar work that you had done, we were able to kind of ride those coattails and really espouse the benefits of network automation and programmability. It was a really exciting time. And to see this now 9 years later, how much people are embracing it and adopting it, network engineers are really speaking the language. It's really exciting to have been part of that flow. And to hear your influence on it is just super exciting.
Yeah, isn't that amazing on how much progress we've made within the last 9 years? And I would say, when Cisco started to promote network automation via DevNet or via libraries or via their education material, it really validated the concept. I think previously people were thinking it was a fab, it's going to die out, and we're just all going to go back to like going from ATM back to Ethernet or something like that, right? But Cisco really validated with DevNet. So thank you guys for all the efforts and great work that you guys have done.
So unfortunately, Eric, this is all the time we have. But before we let you go, we ask every first-time guest this question. What superpower, if you could have one, would you have, and why?
Yeah, I think that's a tough one because they're all so awesome. But I think if I have to pick one, I would do teleportation, just because I have families all over the world. A lot of my family, a lot of my wife's family are in Taiwan. So it would be so nice not having to travel 12 hours in the flight and, cram into the economy seats just to see family. So teleportation is definitely the superpower that I would love to have. And for my family too.
I always like hearing I always like hearing the why, because that's always the better part than the actual superpower. Snackers, go out and check Eric's content, buy his book. It's a really great, not just an introduction, but a way to get yourself excited about network automation and programmability. And also come back next week for our next episode of Snack Minute. Eric, thank you so much for joining us this week.
Thanks for coming on. It's been great. Appreciate your time.
Thanks for having me. Thanks, guys. It's been a pleasure.